Sold. The boy goes to Mr. Sterling for $20. No! Silas Cooper's voice ripped through the stockyard before his mind caught up. I'll take all $575 right now. The auctioneer's hammer froze midair. 500 people went silent. And on that platform, 5 children, still holding hands like a chain about to shatter, turned to stare at the stranger who'd just bet everything he owned on them. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Now settle in. What happened next will haunt you. Sold. The boy goes to all of them. Silas Cooper didn't remember pushing through the crowd. Didn't remember his boots hitting the platform steps. 1 second he was standing at the fence watching. The next he was blocking the auctioneer's path with $75 crumpled in his fist. I said all of them. 5 children. 1 price. Right now. The auctioneer, a red-faced man named Pritchard, laughed like Silas had told a joke. Mr. The boy's already sold. Mr. Sterling here just paid 20. I'll pay 75 for all 5. Silas shoved the money forward. That's 55 more than Sterling's offering. Take it. Now hold on just a minute. A well-dressed man stepped forward. Gold watch chain, polished boots. The kind of rancher who bought people instead of hiring them. I already bid on that boy. Fair and square. You bid on one? Silas didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on the 5 children behind Pritchard. I'm buying the set. The set? Sterling's face went red. These are children, not silverware. Then stop auctioning them like they are. The crowd rippled. Whispers spread like fire through dry grass. On the platform, the oldest boy, maybe 13, had positioned himself in front of his siblings. Skinny arms spread wide. A human shield made of bones and desperation. Behind him, a girl clutched 2 smaller boys. The littlest one couldn't have been more than 4, had her face buried in her sister's neck, crying without sound. They were holding hands, all 5 of them, a chain that was about to break. $75. Silas's voice cut through the noise. Final offer. All 5 stay together. Pritchard looked at Sterling. Sterling looked at the man in the bowler hat, the one who'd been running this whole sick show. The bowler hat man stepped forward, smooth, professional, like he sold children every Tuesday. Sir, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but these placements are handled through proper channels. The Territorial Child Welfare Society has protocols. Your protocol just tried to sell a 13-year-old boy for $20. Silas turned on him. Same price as a saddle. That's your idea of proper? These children are being placed in homes, not sold. Then why is there an auctioneer? The man's smile tightened. Mr. Cooper. Silas Cooper. Mr. Cooper. The smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm Cornelius Whitmore, placement coordinator for the Territorial Child Welfare Society. These children lost their parents to fever last month. They need homes. They need stability. Surely you can understand. I understand you're splitting up a family because it's easier to sell them in pieces. That's not $75. Silas held up the money. All 5. Together, yes or no? Whitmore's jaw worked. Sterling grabbed his arm. Cornelius, you can't seriously consider this man is clearly unfit. A single rancher, no wife, no experience with children. I've got a roof. Silas finally looked at Sterling. I've got food. I've got heat. What do you have besides a wife who wants a servant? Sterling's face went purple. How dare be, yes or no, Whitmore? Silas ignored him. $75, right now. Or I walk out of here and tell everyone in the territory what kind of operation you're running. The stockyard had gone dead silent. 500 people watching, waiting. On the platform, the oldest boy, Sam Silas would learn, was staring at him with something that looked almost like hope. Almost, but not quite. Like he'd learned better than to hope for anything. Whitmore looked at the money, looked at Sterling, looked at the crowd that was starting to shift, to mutter, to question. Fine. The word came out like he was spitting poison. $75, all 5. But you'll sign papers, Mr. Cooper. Legal placement papers. And I'll be conducting inspections. Regular inspections. If I find anything at all. Give me the papers. 20 minutes later, Silas walked out of the stockyard office with a stack of documents and empty pockets. The children were still on the platform, still holding hands. No one had told them they could get down. Silas crossed the yard, his boots loud against the frozen ground. The November wind cut through his coat, carrying the first bitter promise of snow. When he reached the platform steps, all 5 pairs of eyes locked onto him. The oldest boy stepped forward, positioning himself between Silas and his siblings. You the one who bought us. I'm the one who's taking you home. Silas stopped at the bottom step. All 5 of you, together. For how long? The question hit like a fist to the chest. For how long? Like this was just another stop, another temporary arrangement before the next auction, the next separation, the next broken promise. For as long as you need. That's what the last one said. The boy's voice was flat, dead. And the one before that, and the one before that. I ain't them. How do I know? Silas looked at this kid, 13 years old, shoulders too thin, eyes too old, carrying the weight of 4 siblings on a frame that hadn't finished growing yet. You don't. Silas held out his hand. But I just spent every cent I own to keep you together. So either I'm telling the truth, or I'm the stupidest liar in Montana. Either way, you're stuck with me. The boy didn't move. Behind him, the younger ones were watching. The girl, maybe 11, had tears running down her face. The 2 smaller boys were pressed against her sides. And the littlest one, the 4-year-old, had stopped crying and was staring at Silas with huge dark eyes. My name's Silas Cooper, he said quietly. I've got a ranch about 15 miles north. 3 rooms, leaky roof, drafty windows. But the stove works, and there's food for winter. He kept his hand extended. You coming or not? The silence stretched. The wind picked up. Snow started falling. Light flakes that caught in the boy's dark hair and melted on his thin shoulders. Then slowly, like it cost him something, the boy reached out. His hand was small, cold, rough with calluses no 13-year-old should have. I'm Sam. His voice cracked on the word. That's Grace, Tommy, Eli, and Lily. All right, Sam. Silas helped him down from the platform. Let's get your family home. The wagon ride took 3 hours. Silas had come to Silver Creek for a draft horse. He was leaving with 5 children, empty pockets, and no idea what came next. The kids sat in the back, huddled together against the cold. Same formation as the platform. Sam in back, watching the road behind them. Grace holding Lily in her lap. Tommy and Eli pressed against her sides. Nobody spoke for the first hour. Silas focused on driving. On keeping old Rosie moving steady through the deepening snow. On not thinking about what he'd just done. $75, 3 years of savings. Gone. Mr. Tommy's voice. The 9-year-old. Silas had watched him scream and lunge for Sam when the auctioneer called sold. Had watched 2 men drag him back while he kicked and fought and cried. Just Silas. Silas. A pause. Are you going to make us work? Probably. Ranch doesn't run itself. The Hendersons made me work. Tommy's voice went small. Sun up to sundown. Said if I didn't earn my keep, they'd send me back. Did they feed you? Sometimes. Silas's hands tightened on the reins. I'll feed you, every day, whether you work or not. Why? Because that's what you do with kids. You feed them. Silence. Then Grace's voice barely audible over the creak of the wagon. The Morrisons said that too, at first. What happened? They wanted me to... She stopped, swallowed. They had a son. 17. He... Grace. Sam's voice was sharp. Warning. It's fine, Sam. He should know. Grace's voice steadied. I ran, took Tommy and Eli and ran. The Morrisons told Mr. Whitmore we were ungrateful. That's how we ended up at the auction. Silas didn't turn around. Couldn't let them see his face. The Morrisons got a ranch near here. About 30 miles south. Why? No reason. He'd remember that name. The Morrisons, 30 miles south. Silas. Eli's voice, the 6-year-old. First time he'd spoken. Are we going to be split up again? No. Promise. Silas pulled the wagon to a stop. The snow was falling harder now. Fat white flakes that covered the road, covered the hills, covered everything in clean white silence. He turned in his seat. 5 kids stared back at him. 5 faces that had learned not to trust, not to hope, not to believe anything adults said. I'm going to tell you something, Silas said slowly, and I need you to hear it. He waited until he had all their eyes. I had a son once, and a wife. Lost them both to fever 5 years back. Buried them on the hill behind my cabin. Spent 5 years in that cabin alone talking to ghosts and wondering why I bothered getting up in the morning. His voice roughened. Today I watched a man try to sell you like livestock. Watched him split you up because it was easier. Because nobody wanted all 5. Because keeping families together isn't practical. He held Sam's gaze. I ain't practical. Never have been. I'm stubborn and I'm broke and I've got nothing to offer except a roof and food and a promise. He paused. You're not getting separated. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever as long as I'm breathing. That's not a maybe. That's not a we'll see. That's a fact. Lily started crying. Not the silent tears from before. Real crying. Loud and messy and desperate. Grace pulled her close, rocking her, but she was crying too. And Tommy, and Eli, even Sam. Sam, who'd been so hard and so careful and so determined not to hope, had tears running down his face. You don't know us, he choked out. We could be anything. Bad, trouble, then we'll figure it out. Silas turned back to the road. Together. That's what families do. He clicked his tongue. Rosie leaned into the harness. The wagon lurched forward. Behind him 5 children cried. But they were different tears now. Not grief, not fear. Something else. Something that had been dead so long they'd forgotten what it felt like. Hope. The cabin appeared through the snow 2 hours later. Small. Dark. Smoke rising from the chimney. Silas always left the stove burning low when he was gone. That's it. Tommy's voice was uncertain. That's the ranch. That's home. Silas pulled up to the porch. Climbed down. His legs were stiff from the cold, his hands numb inside his gloves. The kids didn't move. They sat in the wagon bed staring at the cabin like it might disappear if they blinked. Come on. Silas reached up for Lily. Let's get inside before we freeze. She came to him without hesitation, wrapped her small arms around his neck, and held on like she was afraid he'd drop her. He wouldn't. Not ever. One by one he helped them down. Sam last still watching everything with those 2 old eyes. The cabin door stuck. Silas put his shoulder into it. Warm air rushed out. Wood smoke and coffee and 5 years of silence. Inside. Get warm. They filed in. Slow. Careful. Like they were walking into a trap. Silas lit the lanterns. Stoked the fire. Put water on to heat. The kids stood in the middle of the room. 5 statues. Afraid to touch anything. Afraid to take up space. Sit down. Nobody moved. That wasn't a suggestion. Silas pulled chairs toward the stove. Sit. Warm up. I'm making food. They sat. Still in formation. Sam behind the others in front. Lily in Grace's lap. Always protecting. Always ready to run. Silas worked at the stove. Beans, salt pork, cornbread from yesterday. Nothing fancy, but hot. When's the last time you ate? Silence. Sam. Yesterday morning. The church gave us bread before the auction. Silas's jaw tightened. He ladled beans into bowls, handed them out, watched 5 hungry children try to eat slowly politely, like they were afraid the food would be taken away. "There's more when that's gone." Eli looked up. "More, as much as you want." The boy's eyes went wide, like the concept of enough food was foreign. Probably was. They ate in silence. Silas sat on the floor by the stove watching them, learning their tells. Sam always checking the door, always counting his siblings, always ready. Grace feeding Lily before herself, making sure everyone else had enough before she took a bite. Tommy eating fast, hiding bread in his pocket when he thought no one was looking. Eli barely eating at all, pushing beans around his bowl, clutching a small wooden horse that Silas hadn't noticed before. Lily falling asleep in Grace's arms, thumb in her mouth bowl, half finished. "All right." Silas stood when the food was gone. "Here's how sleeping works tonight." He explained the arrangement. Girls in the back room, boys in his bed, him on the floor. "We can sleep on the floor," Sam said immediately. "You don't have to. You're kids. You get beds." "But, Sam." Silas met his eyes. "I've slept on worse floors in worse places. You're taking the bed. End of discussion." Sam's jaw worked, but he nodded. Getting everyone settled took time. The girls disappeared into the back room, Grace carrying Lily, who'd fallen fully asleep. Tommy and Eli climbed into Silas's bed, still wearing their coats, still clutching the wooden horse. Sam hesitated at the bedroom door. "What if someone comes? Then I'll handle it." "But, Sam." Silas moved closer. "Doors locked. Stove's hot. I'm right here. Nobody's taking anybody tonight." The boy's shoulders sagged. Just a fraction. Just enough to show how tired he really was. "How do you know?" "Because I'll kill anyone who tries." Sam's eyes widened. Silas didn't blink. "Go to sleep, son. I'll keep watch." Sam stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded, turned, disappeared into the dark room where his brothers were already breathing deep. Silas banked the stove, spread his bedroll by the door. The cabin creaked around him, settling, adjusting to the weight of 6 people instead of 1. From the back room he heard Grace humming, low and soft, a lullaby. From his bedroom, Tommy's sleep mumbling and Eli's quiet breathing. And underneath it all the wind, howling through the valley, rattling the windows, piling snow against the walls. Winter was coming, and somewhere in Silver Creek, Cornelius Whitmore was filing his papers, making his notes, planning his next move. Silas stared at the ceiling. $75. 5 children. 1 leaky cabin. No plan. No backup. No idea what came next. Just a promise. A promise to 5 kids who'd been sold and split and broken so many times they'd forgotten what it meant to be whole. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd figure out how to keep that promise when the whole world wanted him to break it. But tonight 5 siblings were sleeping under the same roof. Together. Safe. Home. And that was worth every dollar he'd ever had. Every dollar and more. Silas woke to the sound of crying. Not loud, not dramatic, the kind of crying that someone's trying to hide. Muffled sobs pressed into a pillow, desperate to stay silent. He was on his feet before he was fully awake. The sound was coming from the back room. The girls. He crossed the cabin in 3 steps, pressed his ear to the door. Grace's voice, shaking. "Shh, Lily. Shh. It's okay. We're okay. I want Mama." Lily's voice was tiny, broken. "I want Mama." "I know, baby. I know. Mama's coming back, right? Sam said she went to heaven, but maybe she can come back." Grace made a sound, half sob, half laugh. "No, sweetheart. Mama can't come back. But we're together. We're still together. That's what matters." "I don't want together. I want Mama." Silas's hand was on the door handle. He could go in, comfort them, try to help. But some things weren't his to fix. Some grief had to be carried by the people who owned it. He stayed by the door, listening. "Lily," Grace's voice steadied. "Do you remember what Mama said before she got sick?" Sniffling. "No." "She said, take care of each other. She made me promise. She made Sam promise. She said as long as we stayed together, she'd always be with us. In here." A pause. "Do you feel her? Right here in your heart?" Silence. Long and terrible. Then so quiet, Silas almost missed it. "Yeah, I feel her." "Then she's not gone." "Not really. She's right here with us, and she always will be." More crying, but softer now, the kind that came before sleep. Silas waited until the sound faded, until the cabin was quiet again. Then he went back to his bedroll, sat down, put his head in his hands. 5 years since he'd buried his wife and son. 5 years of silence and grief and wondering why he was still alive when they weren't. He hadn't cried once. Not at the funeral, not at the grave, not in all the long nights that followed. But now listening to a 4-year-old ask for her mama, listening to an 11-year-old try to explain death to a child who couldn't understand it. Something cracked, deep inside, where he'd buried everything he couldn't carry. He pressed his palms against his eyes, and for the first time in 5 years, Silas Cooper cried. Morning came gray and cold. Silas was up before dawn, stoking the fire, putting coffee on, moving through the motions while his mind ran in circles. What now? He had 5 children, no money, a ranch that barely supported one person, winter coming in hard and fast. What the hell was he supposed to do now? The back room door creaked open. Grace appeared. Dark circles under her eyes, hair tangled from sleep, but her chin was up and her shoulders were straight. "Can I help with breakfast?" Silas looked at her, 11 years old, already trained to earn her keep. "You know how to make flapjacks?" "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir." He handed her the flour sack. "And don't burn them." She almost smiled. Almost. Sam came out next. Then Tommy rubbing his eyes. Then Eli still clutching that wooden horse. Lily was last, carried in Grace's arms, thumb in her mouth, eyes red from crying. They gathered around the table, watching Silas, waiting. "All right?" Silas poured coffee for himself, not the kids. "Here's what happens now." He sat down, made sure he had their attention. "Today, we figure out sleeping arrangements. Tomorrow, we take stock of what supplies we've got. Next week," he paused. "Next week, a man named Whitmore is going to show up and try to convince me you'd be better off somewhere else." Sam went rigid. "He's coming here. He's going to inspect the place, make sure you're being treated right, and if he doesn't like what he sees—" He didn't finish. Didn't have to. Tommy's face went white. "He'll take us away. He'll try. Then we should run." Sam was already calculating. "If we leave now, head north." "We're not running." Silas's voice was firm. "Running means looking over your shoulder forever. Running means never having a home. Better than being split up." "Nobody's getting split up." Silas held Sam's gaze. "That's a promise." "Promises don't mean anything. Adults always break them." "I don't." Sam laughed, bitter, old. "That's what they all say." "Then I'll prove it." "How?" Silas leaned forward. "You know what Whitmore's going to find when he gets here. 5 kids with beds and food and a roof over their heads. 5 kids who are learning to read and do chores and be a family. 5 kids who are together because that's how it should be." He paused. "That man wants to split you up. He's going to have to go through me, and I don't go down easy." The cabin went quiet. 5 children staring at one man who'd just promised to fight the entire territorial child welfare system for them. "Why?" Grace's voice was barely a whisper. "Why do you care so much?" Silas looked at her. At all of them. He thought about the hill behind the cabin, the 2 crosses he'd carved with his own hands, the names he'd traced into the wood until his fingers bled. "Because I know what it's like to lose a family," his voice roughened, "and I'll be damned if I let it happen to you." Eli's small hand reached across the table, touched Silas's arm. First time any of them had touched him by choice. Silas looked down at that tiny hand, at the wooden horse still clutched in the other one. "That's a nice horse," he said quietly. "He got a name." Eli nodded, barely moving. "What is it?" The boy opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Grace. "He doesn't talk much," Grace said quickly. "Not since Mama died. The doctor said it's Dusty." Everyone froze. Eli's voice was barely a whisper, rough from disuse, but real. "His name is Dusty. Pa made him for me." Silas nodded slowly. "That's a good name. Dusty." He looked at the boy. "You take good care of Dusty, Eli. He's counting on you." Eli's eyes went wide. Then slowly, like sunrise breaking over mountains, he smiled. "Okay. Just that. One word. But it was enough." Silas stood, pushed back from the table. "All right. Grace, you're on flapjacks. Sam, come with me. We've got horses to feed. Tommy, Eli, start carrying wood in from the pile by the barn." "Lily." He looked at the 4-year-old, still sleepy, still sad, still clutching Grace's hand. "Lily, you've got the most important job of all." "What?" Her voice was tiny. "You're in charge of keeping Dusty company while Eli works. Think you can handle that?" Her eyes went wide. She looked at Eli. Eli held out the wooden horse, hesitated, then placed it carefully in her hands. "Be careful," he whispered. "He's scared of the dark." Lily clutched the horse to her chest. "I'll protect him." Silas watched them. These 5 broken children who'd somehow started piecing themselves back together. No money, no plan, no idea what came next. But they were together. And right now, that was enough. The snow started falling again that afternoon. Heavy flakes that piled up fast, covering the ground, the barn, the road back to Silver Creek. Silas worked with Sam to secure the horses, showed the boy how to check their hooves, how to measure out feed, how to bank extra hay against the coming cold. Sam learned fast, asked good questions, kept his mouth shut and his eyes open. "You done this before," Silas said, forking hay into the last stall. "Farm work." "Pa had me helping since I was 7. Sam's voice was flat. "After he died, I did it alone for 3 weeks before the church came." 3 weeks you ran the homestead by yourself. "Someone had to. Mama was already sick. The little ones couldn't—" Sam's jaw tightened. "I did what I had to." Silas leaned on his pitchfork. "How'd she die? Your mama?" Sam was quiet for a long moment. "Same fever that took Pa. Just slower. She held on for 2 weeks after he passed. Kept saying she had to make sure we'd be okay." His voice cracked. "Last thing she said was, 'Keep them together, Sam. Promise me.'" "And you did." "I tried." Sam's hands curled into fists. "Kept trying. Every time they split us up, I found them. Brought them back. But it was never enough. There was always another auction, another placement, another person who wanted one of us, but not all." He looked at Silas. "You're the first one who took all 5. The first one who didn't look at us and see work to be divided up." "I saw a family." Silas said it simply. "That's all." Sam stared at him. "Why does it matter so much to you keeping us together?" Silas was quiet. The wind howled outside. Snow piled against the barn door. "I told you I lost my family." "Yeah." "What I didn't tell you." He stopped. Started again. "My boy was 6 when he died. Same age as Eli. He had this laugh you could hear it across the whole valley. Used to follow me everywhere." "Pa, can I help Pa? Let me try." Drove me crazy sometimes. His voice went rough. When the fever took him, it was fast. 3 days. He kept asking for water, and I kept giving it to him, and it was never enough. Nothing was ever enough. Sam said nothing. I buried him next to his mama on the hill out back. Carved their names myself. Spent 5 years in this cabin alone wondering what the point was. Why I was still breathing when they weren't. He looked at Sam. Then I saw you 5 on that platform. Saw you trying to hold everyone together. Saw that man trying to rip you apart. And I thought, this is why. This is what I'm still here for. To save us. To give you what I couldn't give them. A chance. A home. A family that stays together. Sam's eyes were wet. That's a lot of pressure to put on 5 kids you just met. That's not pressure, that's purpose. Silas straightened. There's a difference. They finished the barn work in silence. When they walked back to the cabin, the snow was falling so thick they could barely see the porch. Inside, Grace had flapjacks stacked high. Tommy and Eli had filled the wood box to overflowing. And Lily was sitting by the stove, carefully brushing Dusty's wooden mane with her fingers, talking to him in a serious whisper. "Dinner's ready," Grace announced. They ate together, all 6 of them, crowded around a table meant for 4 elbows, bumping voices overlapping. It was loud, messy, chaotic. It was perfect. After dinner, Silas pulled out his small collection of books. Who wants to learn to read? 4 hands went up. Lily's was the highest. They spent an hour on letters. Silas showing them sounds, having them trace shapes, watching 5 tired children fight to stay awake because learning mattered more than sleep. When Lily finally collapsed against Grace's shoulder, Silas called it. "Bedtime. Same as last night. We'll do more tomorrow." They scattered to their rooms. Sam paused at the door. "Silas." "Yeah?" "When Whitmore comes." He stopped. "What if he takes us anyway? What if he has the law on his side?" Silas met his eyes. "Then we fight. We appeal. We make so much noise that everyone in the territory knows what's happening. And if that doesn't work..." "If that doesn't work..." Silas's voice went hard. "Then I come get you. Every single one of you. I don't care if it's legal. I don't care if I have to burn down the whole territorial child welfare system. You're my family now, and nobody takes my family." Sam stared at him. "You mean that?" "Every word." The boy nodded, slowly, like he was starting to believe. "Okay." He turned to go, then stopped. "Silas, yeah. Thanks. For..." His voice cracked. "For everything." Then he was gone. Disappeared into the dark room where his brothers were already sleeping. Silas stood alone in the main room, listening to the wind, listening to the fire, listening to 6 people breathe in a cabin that had been silent for 5 years. Tomorrow Whitmore would come. Tomorrow the fight would start. But tonight, he had a family. And that was worth fighting for. Worth dying for. Worth everything. The snow didn't stop for 3 days. Silas woke each morning to find the drifts higher against the cabin walls. By the 2nd day, they couldn't see the barn. By the 3rd, Tommy had to dig a tunnel just to reach the woodpile. But inside, something was changing. The children moved differently now. Less like prisoners waiting for transfer. More like people who were starting to believe they might stay. Grace took over the kitchen like she'd been born to it. Every morning, Silas woke to the smell of coffee and whatever she'd managed to make from their dwindling supplies. She rationed without being asked. Stretched meals without complaint. 11 years old and already running a household. "You don't have to do all this," Silas told her on the 3rd morning. "You're a kid. You should be..." "Being useful keeps me from thinking too much." Grace didn't look up from the pot she was stirring. "If I'm busy, I don't remember." Silas understood that better than he wanted to admit. Sam had attached himself to the ranch work like a burr to a saddle blanket. Every task Silas started, Sam was there, watching, learning, asking questions that showed he was already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Storm like this, the horses need extra feed," Silas explained, measuring out oats. "Cold burns energy fast." "How much extra?" "About a quarter more than usual. But we've got to balance it against what we have stored." Sam's eyes went to the depleted grain bins. "That's not going to last till spring." "No, it's not." "What do we do?" Silas handed him the feed bucket. "We figure it out. That's what we always do." Tommy and Eli had found their own rhythm. The 9-year-old had appointed himself Eli's protector the way Sam protected all of them. Where Eli went, Tommy followed. When Eli woke from nightmares, which happened every night, Tommy was there talking him back to sleep in a low voice that carried through the thin walls. "It's okay, Eli. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." The same words, every night, like a prayer. And Lily had claimed Silas. He didn't know how it happened, didn't remember making a choice about it. But somehow, whenever he sat down, she was climbing into his lap. Whenever he walked across the cabin, she was holding his hand. Whenever he tried to work, she was there asking questions in that tiny voice. "Silas, why is snow cold?" "Silas, do horses have dreams?" "Silas, are you going to keep us forever?" That last question stopped him cold. He was splitting kindling by the stove, Lily perched on a chair nearby, watching him with those huge, dark eyes. "What do you mean, keep you?" "Grace says we're staying, but the other people said that too, and then they gave us back." Silas set down the axe. "Come here." She climbed down from the chair, crossed the space between them, stopped just out of reach. Still not quite trusting, still waiting for the catch. Silas crouched down to her level. "You know what forever means." She nodded solemnly. "Forever means I'm not giving you back. Not to Mr. Whitmore, not to anyone. You're staying right here with your brothers and sister in this cabin until you're all grown up and decide to leave on your own. What if you get sick like Mama?" The question hit like a punch to the gut. "Then Sam and Grace will take care of you. And when I get better, I'll take care of you again." "What if you don't get better?" Silas looked at this 4-year-old girl who'd already learned that people could disappear. That love wasn't enough to keep someone alive. That forever was a lie adults told children to make them stop asking questions. "Then I'll haunt this cabin," he said quietly, "and I'll scare away anyone who tries to take you. I'll rattle the windows and knock over the furniture and make so much noise that no one will ever want to live here except you 5. Lily's eyes went wide. "You'd be a ghost. The scariest ghost in Montana." She thought about this, seriously, like she was weighing the logistics. "Okay," she finally said. "That's good." Then she climbed into his lap, put her thumb in her mouth, and fell asleep against his chest. Silas held her, felt her small heartbeat against his ribs, and made a promise he didn't say out loud. No one was taking these children. Not while he was breathing. Not after. Whatever it took. The storm broke on the 4th morning. Silas was up before dawn checking the windows when he saw it blue sky peeking through the clouds. Weak winter sun casting long shadows across the snow. And something else. A dark shape moving on the road. Still distant, but coming closer. His stomach dropped. "Sam?" The boy appeared instantly, already awake, already alert. "Someone's coming." Sam was at the window in 2 steps. His face went pale. "That's a buggy, a nice one." "Whitmore." "Already you said he'd come next week. I was wrong." Silas grabbed his coat. "Wake the others, get everyone dressed, clean. Make this place look like a home, not a hideout." "What are you going to do?" Silas pulled on his boots. "Buy us time." He was out the door before Sam could argue. The cold hit him like a wall. 4 days of being inside, and he'd forgotten how the winter air could steal your breath. He pushed through the knee-deep snow, making for the road where the buggy was slowly approaching. Whitmore, the man who'd tried to auction 5 children like livestock, the man who'd smiled while families were torn apart. Silas positioned himself in the middle of the road, feet planted, arms crossed, blocking the way. The buggy slowed, stopped. Whitmore climbed down. Same pressed suit, same polished boots, though they sank into the snow, now ruining that perfect shine. Same leather portfolio tucked under his arm. "Mr. Cooper." His voice was pleasant, professional. "I hope I'm not arriving at an inconvenient time." "You're 4 days early." "The storm delayed me. I'd intended to come sooner." Whitmore smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I trust the children are well." "They're fine." "Excellent. Then you won't mind if I conduct my inspection." "I mind?" Whitmore's smile flickered. "Mr. Cooper, I explained the terms of the placement. Regular inspections are required. I know, but you're not setting foot in that cabin until you tell me what you're really here for." "I'm here to ensure the children's welfare." "You're here because Sterling sent you." Silence. The wind picked up swirling snow between them. "Mr. Sterling," Whitmore said carefully, "is a respected member of the Territorial Board. He has legitimate concerns about this placement. He has legitimate concerns about losing his free labor." "That's not—" "He wanted Sam because the boy's strong and won't complain. He wanted Grace because his wife needs a servant. He didn't give a damn about the other three." Silas stepped closer. "And neither do you." Whitmore's professional mask slipped. "Mr. Cooper, I've placed over 100 children in homes across this territory. Good homes. Safe homes. I've given orphans futures they never would have had otherwise. What I do is necessary work. What you do is sell children. I place them. You split up families because it's easier. Because keeping siblings together isn't profitable. Because people like Sterling pay more for one useful kid than 5 hungry mouths." Silas's voice was low, dangerous. "Don't stand there and pretend you're doing God's work." Whitmore's face went red. "I could have you arrested, interfering with territorial welfare operations." "Try it. You're in violation of the placement agreement." "Show me where." "The children are supposed to be available for inspection at any time." "And they will be, after you answer my question." Silas didn't blink. "What are you really here for? Because if it's just a standard inspection, you could have waited till next week like you said. You drove through a blizzard to get here. Why?" Whitmore was quiet for a long moment. Then his shoulders dropped. Just a fraction, just enough to show the calculation behind his eyes. "The Territorial Board is meeting in Helena next month. They're reviewing all placements made in the last 6 months. He paused. "Sterling has filed a formal complaint. He's claiming you obtained the children through coercion, that the auction was conducted improperly, that the placement should be voided." Voided. Reversed. The children would be returned to territorial custody and split up. Placed appropriately, according to the board's guidelines. Silas felt something cold settle in his chest. "And you're here to gather evidence, to prove I'm unfit so Sterling can get what he wants." Whitmore didn't deny it. "I'm here to document the situation. Whatever I find, I report. If you're providing adequate care, my report will reflect that. And if I'm not, then the board will make a decision based on the children's best interests." "The children's best interests?" Silas laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "You keep using those words. I don't think they mean what you think they mean." "Mr. Cooper?" "Fine." Silas stepped aside. "Inspect. Look at everything. Ask them whatever you want." Whitmore blinked. "You're cooperating." "I've got nothing to hide." Silas turned toward the cabin. "But when you're done, you're going to look me in the eye and tell me those kids should be separated. And if you can do that, if you can watch them together and still think splitting them up is their best interest, then you're not the man I hoped you might be." He walked toward the cabin. After a moment, Whitmore followed. None. The children were ready. Grace had everyone scrubbed and dressed in their cleanest clothes, which weren't very clean, but they were trying. The cabin was swept, The beds made the table cleared. Sam stood in front of his siblings like a soldier guarding a castle. When Silas walked in with Whitmore behind him, all 5 faces turned toward them. Lily grabbed Grace's hand. Eli pressed against Tommy's side. Sam didn't move, just watched Whitmore with those 2 old eyes. "Children." Whitmore nodded at them, trying for friendly, missing by a mile. "It's good to see you again." Nobody responded. "I'm here to check on your welfare. Make sure you're being properly cared for." He pulled out his portfolio. "I'll need to speak with each of you individually. Standard procedure." "No." Sam's voice was flat. Whitmore's eyebrows rose. "I'm sorry. We don't talk to you alone. Last time we did that, you used it to split us up." Sam didn't flinch. "You want to ask questions, you ask them here, in front of everyone. That's not how that's how this inspection works." Whitmore looked at Silas. Silas shrugged. His family, his rules. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Whitmore sighed. "Fine. We'll do it your way." He pulled out a chair, sat down, opened his portfolio. "Let's start with the basics. Are you getting enough to eat?" "Yes," Grace answered. "How many meals a day?" 3. "And snacks if we're hungry." "Duh." "What about sleeping arrangements?" "Girls in the back room, boys in the side room. Silas sleeps by the stove." Whitmore made a note. "And who does the cooking?" "I do. Sometimes Silas helps." "You're 11 years old." "I know how old I am." Another note. "What about schooling? Are you receiving any education?" "Silas teaches us reading every night, and arithmetic, and he's going to teach us about horses when the weather breaks." Whitmore looked up. "Mr. Cooper is teaching you to read. Is that a problem?" "No, He made another note. "And you, Samuel, are you being worked appropriately, not beyond your capabilities?" Sam's jaw tightened. "I help with the ranch, same as I helped at our homestead, same as any kid helps their family." "Do you want to be here?" The question hung in the air. Sam looked at his siblings, at Grace still holding Lily's hand, at Tommy and Eli pressed together like they were afraid of being pulled apart, at Lily, who had her thumb in her mouth and her eyes locked on Silas. "I want us to be together," Sam said quietly. "This is the only place that's happened since Mama died." "That doesn't answer my question." "Yes, it does." Sam met Whitmore's eyes. "I don't care where we are as long as we're together. You put us in a palace and split us up, I'll run. You put us in a shack and keep us together, I'll stay forever." He paused. "Silas keeps us together. So yes, I want to be here." Whitmore was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to Tommy. "And you?" "The Hendersons reported that you were difficult, prone to running away." Tommy's face went pale, but his voice was steady. "I ran because they wouldn't let me see my brothers and sisters. They said I had to earn visits, work harder, be better." His hands curled into fists. "I ran because they were using my family against me. And here I wake up and they're still there. Every morning." Tommy's voice cracked. "I don't have to earn anything. They're just there." Whitmore made another note. He went through each child. Eli, who whispered his answers but answered. Lily, who couldn't understand most of the questions, but kept pointing at Silas and saying, "He's nice." When he was done, Whitmore closed his portfolio, looked around the cabin, looked at Silas. "The facilities are modest. They're adequate. The children are sharing rooms. Siblings usually do. There's no woman present to supervise the girls. Grace is doing fine supervising herself." Whitmore stood, walked to the window, stared out at the snow. "Mr. Cooper, do you know why I do this work?" Silas didn't answer. "I was an orphan, placed in 7 different homes before I turned 12. Some were good, some were—" He paused. "Less good. But the system saved me, gave me structure, purpose, a path forward." He turned to face Silas. "I believe in that system. I believe that proper placements, structured, supervised, appropriate, Give children the best chance at decent lives. Even if it means splitting up families. Sometimes, especially then, siblings can hold each other back. The oldest takes too much responsibility. The youngest never learns independence. Keeping them together isn't always. Stop. Sam's voice cut through the room. Whitmore blinked. I'm sorry. Sam stepped forward. 12 years old, skinny, small, but his eyes were blazing. You don't get to decide what's best for us. You don't know us. You don't know what we've been through. You don't know what it was like to watch Mama die, to bury her next to Pa, to hold Lily while she screamed for them, to promise. His voice broke. To promise I'd keep everyone together no matter what. He was shaking now. With rage or grief, Silas couldn't tell. You want to talk about what's best for us? Best for us is being together. Best for us is a man who spent everything he had so we wouldn't be sold off like cattle. Best for us is this cabin with its leaky roof and its drafty windows, and it's one man who actually gives a damn whether we live or die. Sam pointed at Whitmore. Your system didn't save us. It tried to destroy us. And if you think I'm going to let you take my family apart again, you're wrong. I'll run. I'll take all of them and run so far you'll never find us. And we'll survive. We'll survive because that's what we do. That's all we know how to do. Silence. Absolute silence. Lily was crying. Grace was crying. Tommy had his arm around Eli, who was clutching his wooden horse so hard his knuckles were white. And Whitmore looked like he'd been slapped. Sam. Silas's voice was quiet. That's enough. It's not enough. It's never enough. Nothing we say is ever enough because they don't listen. They never listen. I'm listening. Whitmore's voice was different now. Softer, less professional. I'm listening, Samuel. Sam stopped, breathing hard, tears streaming down his face. What? Whitmore set down his portfolio, took off his spectacles, rubbed his eyes. I was 8 years old when they took me from my sister. She was 6. They said she'd be better off in a different home, said we'd see each other again soon. He paused. I never saw her again, never found out what happened to her. Spent 40 years wondering. He looked at Sam. I tell myself the system is good, that what I do matters, that the children I place end up better off. His voice wavered. But some nights I lie awake and wonder if any of them ended up like my sister. Lost, forgotten, alone. The cabin was completely silent. I came here to find evidence against Mr. Cooper, to build a case for the board, to give Sterling what he wanted. Whitmore picked up his portfolio. But I'm not going to do that. Silas stared at him. What? These children are cared for. They're together. They're safe. Whitmore looked at Sam. And they're right. Keeping families together should matter more than procedure. He walked to the door, stopped. My report will reflect what I observed today. 5 children in adequate housing, with a guardian who appears committed to their welfare. I'll recommend the placement continue under standard review protocols. And Sterling. Mr. Sterling can file whatever complaints he wants, but my report is my report, and I won't lie in it. He opened the door. Cold wind rushed in. Mr. Cooper. Yeah. Don't make me regret this. Then he was gone, climbing into his buggy, driving away through the snow. Silas stood in the doorway watching until the buggy disappeared over the hill. Behind him, the children were silent. Then Lily's small voice broke through. Did we win? Silas turned. 5 faces stared back at him. Hopeful, scared, waiting. We won this round, he said slowly. But it's not over. Sterling's still out there. The board's still meeting. We've got a lot of fighting left to do. But for now? Grace asked. Silas looked at them. His family. His responsibility. His reason for getting up in the morning. For now, we're together. And that's what matters. Sam crossed the room, stopped in front of Silas. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Sam did something he'd never done before. He hugged him. fierce and tight and desperate. Silas's arms came up automatically, wrapped around the boy's thin shoulders. "Thank you," Sam whispered, "for not giving up on us." "I'm not giving up, not ever." Then the others were there, Grace and Tommy and Eli and Lily, all of them pressed together in a tangle of arms and tears. A family, broken and bruised and scarred, but together, and that was worth everything. Oh, the days after Whitmore's visit settled into routine. Silas found that he liked routine, liked knowing that Grace would have coffee ready when he woke, liked the sound of Tommy and Eli arguing about who got to feed the horses first, liked Lily following him everywhere, asking endless questions about everything, even liked Sam's quiet presence at his side, learning the ranch work with the same fierce determination he'd used to keep his family together. They fell into patterns. Morning chores, breakfast together. Lessons in the afternoon reading arithmetic history when Silas could remember enough of it. Evening chores, dinner, more reading by lamplight. Simple, predictable, safe. But Silas knew it couldn't last. Sterling was still out there. The territorial board was still meeting next month, and underneath all the routine the threat hung like a storm cloud on the horizon. He tried not to think about it, tried to focus on the present, on teaching Sam how to mend fences, on helping Grace perfect her biscuit recipe, on coaxing words out of Eli, who was talking more every day, short sentences whispered half to himself, but real words. Progress. All of them were making progress. And then, on the 12th day after the storm, the progress came crashing down. It started with a cough. Eli woke up in the middle of the night, coughing so hard, his whole body shook. By morning, he was burning with fever. "It's nothing," Silas told himself. "Kids get sick. It happens." But by midday, Eli couldn't keep water down. By evening, he was delirious, crying out for his mother, for his father, for people who couldn't answer anymore. Grace stayed by his bed, cooling his forehead with wet cloths. Tommy paced the cabin like a caged animal. Sam stood at the window watching the road as if he could summon help through sheer force of will. And Lily. Lily sat in the corner clutching Dusty, the wooden horse Eli had trusted her with. "He's going to be okay, right?" she kept asking. "Silas, he's going to be okay." Silas didn't know how to answer. He'd seen fever before, seen it take his wife in 3 days, seen it take his son in less. He knew what it looked like when someone was slipping away. "I'm going for the doctor," he announced. Sam whirled from the window. "The storm." "I know. It's 20 miles to town." "I know. You could die out there." Silas pulled on his coat. "If I don't go, Eli dies in here." Sam grabbed his arm. "Then let me go. I'm lighter. The horse can move faster." "You're staying with your family. They need you here." "They need you too." Silas looked at the boy, 12 years old, trying so hard to be a man. "If I'm not back by morning, you take them and go. Head for the Thompson farm 10 miles east. Tell them what happened. They're good people. They'll help." "Silas." "Promise me, Sam." The boy's eyes were wet. His jaw trembled. "I promise." Silas squeezed his shoulder, looked past him to the others. Grace still bent over Eli's bed. Tommy fists clenched, tears streaming. Lily clutching that wooden horse like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the world. "I'll be back," Silas said. Then he walked out into the storm. The ride to town nearly killed him 3 times. Once when Scout stumbled in a drift and almost threw him. Once when the wind got so bad he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. Once when he found himself so cold he couldn't feel his fingers on the reins, couldn't feel anything except the desperate need to keep moving. He thought about turning back. Thought about the warmth of the cabin, the fire, the children waiting. But then he thought about Eli, 6 years old, fever-bright eyes, calling for a mother who couldn't answer. And he kept riding. Doc Harrison's house was dark when Silas reached Silver Creek. He pounded on the door until his frozen hands bled. The door opened. What in the hell? The boy. Silas could barely speak. His lips were numb, his lungs burned. Eli, he's sick. Fever. Bad. Harrison took one look at him and pulled him inside. You rode 20 miles in that storm. Had to. You could have died. Didn't. Harrison was already grabbing his bag, pulling on his coat. Tell me the symptoms. Silas told him. Everything. The cough, the fever, the delirium. Harrison's face went grim. Sounds like pneumonia. How long since it started? 12 hours, maybe more. Then we need to move. They rode back together, slower than Silas wanted, faster than was safe. The sun was coming up when they reached the cabin. Sam had the door open before they could dismount. He's worse. Grace has been with him all night, but he's... The boy's voice broke. He's so hot, and he keeps calling for Mama. Harrison pushed past him into the cabin. Silas tried to follow, but his legs gave out. 3 steps from the porch, he collapsed in the snow. The last thing he heard before the darkness took him was Lily's voice screaming his name. He woke to warmth, firelight on his face, something soft under his head, voices distant and worried. Dehydration and exposure. He'll be fine with rest. But, Eli, I've done what I can. The next 24 hours will tell us. Silas opened his eyes. He was lying on his bedroll by the stove. Grace was kneeling beside him, her face streaked with tears. You're awake. Eli. His voice was a rasp. Doc Harrison's with him. He says... She stopped, swallowed. He says we have to wait. Silas tried to sit up. The world spun. Grace pushed him back down. You almost died. Doc says you rode through that storm with frostbite starting on your hands and face. Another hour out there and... She couldn't finish. But I made it. You made it. Silas reached up, touched her cheek. How are the others? Scared. Sam hasn't left Eli's side. Tommy's been praying I didn't even know he knew how to pray. And Lily. Grace's voice wavered. Lily keeps asking when you're going to wake up. She's been holding Dusty for Eli. Says she promised to protect it. She's a good kid. She loves you. We all... Grace stopped, looked away. We were scared. When you collapsed. We thought... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Silas lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the cabin. Harrison's low voice from the back room. Sam's murmured responses. Tommy's quiet prayers. Lily's hitched breathing from somewhere nearby. His family. Broken and terrified and holding on with everything they had. I'm not going anywhere, Silas said quietly. Not ever. Grace nodded, wiped her eyes. Promise? Promise. She smiled. Weak and watery, but real. Then she went to check on her brother, and Silas lay there too tired to move, too stubborn to sleep, waiting, praying, hoping that when morning came, they'd all still be together. The fever broke at dawn. Silas heard it happen. Harrison's sharp intake of breath, Sam's choked sob. Grace's whispered, "Thank God." He dragged himself off the floor and stumbled to the back room. Eli was lying in the bed, pale and thin and weak, but his eyes were open, clear, focused, and he was holding his wooden horse. Silas. His voice was barely a whisper. Silas knelt beside the bed. Hey, buddy, you scared us. I saw Mama. Eli's eyes filled with tears. She said it wasn't time yet. She said I had to stay, had to take care of Dusty. Silas couldn't speak. Did I do good? Did I stay? Yeah. Silas's voice cracked. Yeah, you did real good. Eli smiled. Then his eyes closed, and he slipped into a real sleep. A healing sleep. Silas stayed there kneeling beside the bed for a long time. Around him his family gathered. Sam and Grace and Tommy and Lily. All of them together. All of them safe. All of them home. Harrison left an hour later with instructions and medicine and a promise to return in 3 days. At the door, he paused. "Mr. Cooper." "Yeah." "That was the dumbest, bravest thing I've ever seen. Riding through that storm. You should be dead." "I'm not." "No." Harrison shook his head. "You're not. And neither is that boy. Because you wouldn't give up on him." He tipped his hat. "You're a good man, Silas Cooper. Whatever anyone else says, remember that." Then he was gone. Silas closed the door, turned to face his family. They were all watching him. 5 pairs of eyes. 5 faces full of something he hadn't seen since the day he'd bought them at auction. Trust. Real trust. "Well," he said quietly, "I think we've had enough excitement for 1 week." Tommy laughed, a real laugh, the kind that bubbled up from somewhere deep. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I think so too." They gathered around the stove, all 6 of them. Silas held Lily in his lap. Grace leaned against Sam. Tommy and Eli sat side by side, Eli still clutching dusty Tommy with his arm around his brother's shoulders. A family, forged in fire and fear and a 20-mile ride through a blizzard. But together, always together, and that was worth everything. 3 weeks passed before the letter came. Silas was in the barn with Sam showing the boy how to check a horse's hooves for stones when Tommy came running through the snow, waving an envelope like it was on fire. "Silas, Silas. A man came. He left this." The envelope was thick, official. The territorial seal pressed into red wax on the back. Silas's stomach dropped. Who delivered it? A rider. Didn't say nothing. Just handed it over and left. Sam had gone pale. "Is it from Whitmore?" "I don't know." Silas broke the seal, unfolded the papers inside. The words blurred together at first. Legal language, official phrases, but certain sentences jumped out like they were written in fire. Formal hearing scheduled. Territorial board review. Placement under consideration. Presence required. What does it say? Sam's voice was tight. Silas read it again, slower this time. There's a hearing, in Helena, 3 weeks from now. He looked at Sam. Sterling filed his complaint. The board's going to decide whether to void our placement. Void it. They can do that. They can do whatever they want. They're the board. Sam grabbed the letter, scanned it himself. His hands were shaking. This says they're going to evaluate whether the children would be better served in alternative placements. He looked up, eyes blazing. Alternative placements. That means splitting us up. That's what they're considering. Then we fight it. We will. How? Sam's voice cracked. We've got no money, no lawyers, no connections. Sterling's got all of that. How do we fight someone like him? Silas took the letter back, folded it carefully. We tell the truth. We show them what we've built here. We make them see what they'd be destroying. And if that's not enough... Silas looked at the boy, 12 years old, carrying the weight of 4 siblings on shoulders that were just starting to fill out from regular meals. Then we find another way. But we don't give up. Not ever. Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, what do we do first? First, we don't tell the others. Not yet. No point scaring them until we have a plan. Grace will know something's wrong. Then we tell Grace, but Tommy, Eli, Lily, they don't need this hanging over them. Sam nodded again. What else? We need witnesses. People who can speak for us at the hearing. Doc Harrison, Sheriff Boone, anyone who's seen how we live, how we treat each other. What about the reporter? The woman who wrote about the auction. Silas had almost forgotten. Clara Morrison. She'd written a scathing piece about children being sold at stockyards, though she'd never mentioned Silver Creek by name. The article had caused a stir in Helena, made people uncomfortable. That's good thinking. We find her, tell her our story. If she writes about it, public pressure. Exactly. Sam almost smiled. Almost. You're pretty smart for an old rancher. And you're pretty mouthy for a kid who's supposed to respect his elders. This time Sam did smile. Brief and fragile, but real. Let's go tell Grace. They walked back to the cabin together, the letter heavy in Silas's pocket. Grace took the news the way she took everything quietly, practically with her mind, already working on solutions. We need to document everything, she said when Silas finished explaining. What we eat, what we learn, how we live. If they're going to judge whether we're being cared for properly, we should have proof. That's smart. I'll start a journal. Write down everything, and I'll make sure the cabin is perfect for when they come to inspect again. They might not come here. The hearing's in Helena. Then we bring the proof to them. Grace's chin lifted. We show them exactly what they'd be taking away. Silas looked at her. 11 years old. Already thinking like a general planning a campaign. When did you get so grown up? When I didn't have a choice. The words hung in the air. Simple. Devastating. Silas reached out, squeezed her shoulder. You shouldn't have had to. Neither should Sam. Neither should any of us. She met his eyes. But we did. And now we're here. And I'm not letting anyone take this away. Neither am I. They shook on it. Formal, serious. A pact between a rancher and an 11-year-old girl. Against the territorial board. Against Sterling. Against anyone who thought they could tear this family apart. The next 3 weeks were the busiest of Silas's life. He rode to town twice, meeting with Doc Harrison, who agreed to testify about Eli's illness and recovery. Meeting with Sheriff Boone, who promised to speak about the auction and Whitmore's inspection. Meeting with Clara Morrison, who listened to the whole story with sharp eyes and a sharper pen. This is exactly the kind of thing people need to hear, she said when he finished. Children being treated like property, wealthy families using the system to get what they want, a single man fighting against impossible odds to keep a family together. Will you write about it? I'll do better than that. I'll come to the hearing. I'll make sure everyone in the territory knows what's happening. And if we lose, Clara's eyes went hard, then I'll make sure everyone knows that too. And Sterling will never live it down. Silas rode home that night feeling something he hadn't felt since the letter arrived. Hope. Fragile. Uncertain. But there. The children noticed the change in him. Tommy started asking questions. Why was Silas going to town so much? Why were Grace and Sam having secret conversations? Why did everyone look worried when they thought he wasn't watching Silas put him off as long as he could? But 3 days before the hearing, Lily broke the silence. They were sitting by the stove after dinner. Eli was practicing his letters on a slate Grace had found in the barn. Tommy was whittling a stick into something that might eventually be a whistle. Grace was mending a shirt. Sam was pretending to read, while actually watching Silas with those two knowing eyes. And Lily was in Silas's lap, playing with Dusty the wooden horse that had become her constant companion since Eli's illness. Silas, yeah, darlin', are bad men coming to take us away? The cabin went silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Every eye turned to Silas. Who told you that? Nobody. But you look scared sometimes, when you think we're not watching. And Sam and Grace whisper a lot. And you keep going to town. Her small hand found his. Are they coming? The bad men? Silas looked at Sam. Sam nodded slowly. Time to tell them. Come here, Silas said. All of you. They gathered around. Tommy abandoning his whittling, Eli setting down his slate, Grace and Sam moving closer, a family waiting for bad news. There's a hearing, Silas said quietly. In Helena, in 3 days. Some people, important people, are trying to say that I shouldn't be taking care of you, that you should be placed in different homes. Different homes. Tommy's voice shot up. You mean split up? That's what they want. But you said... Tommy's face crumpled. You promised. You said we'd never be split up again. And I meant it. Silas's voice was firm. That's why we're going to Helena. To fight. How? Eli whispered. His hand had found Dusty was clutching the wooden horse against his chest. We're going to tell them the truth. About how we live. How we take care of each other. We're going to bring people who've seen us, Doc Harrison, Sheriff Boone, others. We're going to make them understand that keeping you together is the right thing to do. And if they don't understand? Grace asked quietly. Silas looked at her, at all of them. Then we figure out something else. But we don't give up. We don't stop fighting, and we don't let them tear us apart without one hell of a battle. Lily tugged on his sleeve. Will you be there at the hearing? I'll be right there with you. Promise? Promise. She nodded solemnly, seemed to accept this. Then in a voice too old for 4 years, okay, then we'll win. Silas wished he had her confidence. The night before they left for Helena, Silas couldn't sleep. He lay on his bedroll, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the cabin. Grace's soft breathing from the back room. Tommy's occasional sleep mumbling. Eli's quiet whimpers as he fought through another nightmare. And Sam. Sam, who appeared in the doorway like a ghost, silent and watchful. Can't sleep either, Silas asked quietly. No. Come sit. Sam crossed the room, settled on the floor beside Silas's bedroll. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. What if we lose? Sam finally asked. What happens then? We appeal. We fight the decision. But what if we lose everything? What if they take us and there's nothing you can do? Silas turned to look at the boy. In the dim light from the stove, Sam looked young. Younger than he'd seemed since the day Silas met him. The weight he carried had lifted just enough to show the child underneath. A child who was terrified of losing the only home he'd known since his parents died. You remember what I told you that first night? You told me a lot of things. I told you that if they took you, I'd come get you, every single one of you. That I'd burn down the whole territorial child welfare system if I had to. Sam nodded slowly. I meant it. Silas sat up, met the boy's eyes. If we lose tomorrow, if we lose everything, I will find you. I will find Grace and Tommy and Eli and Lily, and I will bring you home. I don't care if it's legal. I don't care if I have to break every law in the territory. You are my family, and I don't abandon my family. Sam's eyes glistened. Why? His voice cracked. Why do you care so much? We're not your blood. We're not your responsibility. You could have walked away 100 times by now. Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he told Sam something he'd never told anyone. When my son died, I thought I'd die too. The grief was so heavy I couldn't breathe, couldn't eat, couldn't see the point of getting up in the morning. I went through the motions for 5 years, but I wasn't really living, just existing, waiting to join him and his mama on that hill. He paused. Then I saw you 5 on that platform, holding hands, trying so hard to stay together, and something cracked open inside me, something I'd kept locked away since I buried my boy. Sam didn't speak, just listened. I didn't save you because I'm a good man. I saved you because you saved me first. You gave me a reason to live again, a reason to fight, a reason to wake up in the morning and actually care about what happens next. His voice roughened. So when you ask why I care so much, that's why. Because you're not just my responsibility. You're my purpose. You're my second chance. And I'm not letting anyone take that away. Not from you. Not from me. Sam was crying now. Silently, the way he did everything. Tears running down his face while his expression stayed frozen. Then he did something he'd never done before. He leaned forward and wrapped his arms around Silas. Held on tight, like a drowning man finding solid ground. Thank you, he whispered, for choosing us, for fighting for us, for not giving up. Silas held him back. Always, son, always. They stayed like that for a long time. 2 people who'd lost everything finding something worth holding on to. Finally, Sam pulled back, wiped his eyes. We should sleep. Long ride tomorrow. Yeah, we should. Neither of them moved. Silas? Yeah. Whatever happens tomorrow. Sam paused. I'm glad you bought us. I'm glad you're our family. Silas's throat tightened. Me too, son. Me too. Sam went back to bed. Silas lay in the darkness staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow they would ride to Helena. Tomorrow they would face the territorial board. Tomorrow everything could change. But tonight he had a family, and that was worth fighting for. The ride to Helena took 2 days. Silas borrowed a covered wagon from a neighbor, piled it with blankets and supplies, and loaded up his whole family. The snow had melted enough to make the roads passable, but it was still cold, still hard. The children huddled together in the wagon bed wrapped in quilts, watching the landscape change as they moved further from home. Tommy asked questions constantly. How big was Helena? Were there really buildings with 3 floors? Could they get candy at the general store? Grace kept everyone fed and organized, rationing their supplies with the precision of a quartermaster. Eli stayed quiet, clutching Dusty, occasionally whispering to Sam about things only the two of them understood. And Lily fell asleep against Silas's side, her small hand wrapped around his finger, even in dreams. They arrived in Helena on the evening before the hearing. The city was bigger than anything the children had seen. Wide streets, tall buildings, people everywhere moving with the hurried purpose of folks who had places to be. Silas found a boarding house that would take all of them for a reasonable price. 1 room, 2 beds. They'd manage. Get some sleep, he told the children after dinner. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Nobody argued. They piled into the beds, girls in one, boys in the other, and fell asleep almost instantly. The exhaustion of travel, the anxiety of waiting had worn them all thin. Only Sam stayed awake, sitting by the window, watching the street below. You should rest, Silas said quietly, settling into a chair nearby. Can't. Nervous? Sam turned to look at him. I keep thinking about what happens if we lose, where they'll send us, whether we'll ever see each other again. His voice dropped. Whether we'll ever see you again. You will. You can't know that. I know myself. Silas leaned forward. And I know that nothing is going to keep me from finding you if they take you away. Not distance, not laws, not the whole damn territorial board. Sam almost smiled. You really are stubborn, aren't you? Runs in the family. We're not actually related. Doesn't matter, you're still family, and Coopers don't quit. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then, Dawsons don't quit either. Good, then we're agreed. Silas stood, squeezed the boy's shoulder. Get some sleep. Whatever happens tomorrow, you'll need your strength. Sam nodded, finally moved away from the window, climbed into bed next to his brothers. Silas sat in the chair watching over them, his family. Tomorrow he'd fight for them with everything he had, and if that wasn't enough, he'd find another way. Because that's what fathers did. The courthouse was packed. Silas hadn't expected so many people. Ranchers and townspeople, officials in suits, Clara Morrison in the back with her notebook, Doc Harrison near the front, Sheriff Boone by the door, and in the center of it all, seated behind a raised bench, the 3 members of the territorial board. Chairman Porter, the one with the kind eyes. Mr. Clemens, the one who was friends with Sterling. Reverend Michaels, the one whose opinion would likely swing the vote. Sterling sat at a table on one side of the room. Well-dressed, confident, smug. Silas sat at a table on the other side, 5 children behind him, everything he owned on the line. This hearing will come to order. Chairman Porter's voice filled the room. We're here to review the placement of Samuel Grace Thomas Elijah and Lily Dawson, currently in the custody of Silas Cooper, under territorial welfare guidelines. He shuffled papers. A complaint has been filed by Mr. Harold Sterling, alleging that the original placement was obtained through coercion and that the children would be better served in alternative arrangements. Sterling's lawyer stood. Slick, expensive, the kind of man who'd never lost a case because he'd never taken one he couldn't win. Your Honor, my client seeks only to ensure the welfare of these children. Mr. Cooper is a single man with limited resources, no experience in child rearing, and a history of... I'd like to testify. Every head turned. Sam was standing, 12 years old, thin, small, but his voice was steady. I'd like to tell the board what it's actually like, living with Silas. Sterling's lawyer sputtered. This is highly irregular. The child can't simply... Let him speak. Reverend Michaels leaned forward. If we're deciding his fate, we should hear his voice. Chairman Porter nodded. Samuel Dawson, please approach. Sam walked to the front of the room. He looked at Sterling, at the board, at the crowd of strangers who would decide whether his family stayed together. Then he looked at Silas. Silas nodded. You've got this. Sam turned back to the board and began to speak. My parents died last winter. Fever took them both in the same week. I was 12 years old and suddenly I was responsible for 4 younger siblings. We had nothing. No money, no family, no one who wanted all 5 of us together. His voice didn't waver. Mr. Whitmore put us up for auction. He called it a placement, but that's not what it was. It was an auction. They were bidding on us like we were cattle. Split lot available, the auctioneer said. Like we could just be divided up and parceled out. Someone in the crowd made a sound. Disgust. Horror. Then Silas came. Sam's voice softened. He didn't know us. Had never seen us before. But when they tried to sell my brother, when they tried to separate us, he stood up. He said, all of them. I'll take all 5. He paused. He spent everything he had, $75, 3 years of savings, every cent he owned, not because he wanted workers or servants or someone to help on his ranch, but because he couldn't stand watching a family be torn apart. Sam looked at Sterling. You want to talk about what's best for us. Best for us is being together. Best for us is someone who sees us as people, not as property. Best for us is a man who rode 20 miles through a blizzard to get a doctor when my brother was dying, who taught us to read, who held my little sister when she cried for our mother, who never not once made us feel like we were a burden. His voice cracked. You think your money makes you better? You think your big house and your nice clothes mean you can give us a better life? Sam shook his head. You don't know anything about us. You don't know what we need. You just know what you want. And what you want isn't us. It's what we can do for you. He turned back to the board. I'm asking you, begging you, don't separate us again. We've lost our parents. We've lost our home. We've lost everything except each other. Please don't take that too. Silence. Absolute ringing silence. Then Lily's small voice from the back of the room. Sam? Did we win? Someone laughed. Someone else was crying. And Silas Cooper, sitting at that table with everything on the line, felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Pride. Overwhelming, heart-bursting pride. In a boy who'd been sold like livestock and still had the courage to stand up and fight. Chairman Porter cleared his throat. Thank you, Samuel. You may sit down. Sam walked back to his seat. His siblings surrounded him instantly. Grace squeezing his hand. Tommy patting his back. Eli pressing Dusty into his palm. Lily climbing into his lap. The board conferred in low voices. Sterling's lawyer tried to object to redirect to salvage something from the wreckage Sam had made of his case. But the damage was done. Everyone in that room had seen the truth. Had seen 5 children who belonged together. Had seen a family worth saving. Chairman Porter raised his hand for silence. This board has heard compelling testimony from all sides. We'll take a brief recess to deliberate. Our decision will be announced within the hour. The crowd murmured, shuffled, waited. Silas turned to his children. You did good, he said quietly. All of you. Whatever happens now, you did everything you could. Sam shook his head. It's not enough. I could see Clemens's face. He's already decided. He's going to vote for Sterling. Maybe, but that's only one vote. What if Reverend Michaels? Then we'll find another way. Silas gripped his shoulder. But we don't give up. Remember. I remember. They waited. The longest hour of Silas's life. He held Lily, watched Tommy pace, listened to Grace whisper reassurances to Eli, and he watched Sam. Sam, who had stood in front of the entire territorial board and fought for his family with nothing but words and courage. Sam, who was still just a boy, no matter how hard he tried to be a man. Sam, who deserved so much better than this uncertainty, this fear, this constant threat of losing everything. Finally, the board returned. The crowd fell silent. Chairman Porter stood. After careful deliberation, the territorial board has reached a decision regarding the placement of the Dawson children. Silas stopped breathing. It is the decision of this board that the current placement with Mr. Silas Cooper be made permanent. Mr. Sterling's complaint is hereby dismissed. The room erupted. Cheers, applause. Clara Morrison already scribbling in her notebook. But Silas didn't hear any of it. He was too busy being tackled by 5 children who were crying and laughing and holding on to him like they'd never let go. "We won," Grace sobbed. "We won." "We're staying together," Tommy shouted. "We're staying together." Eli just held up Dusty, showing the wooden horse to Silas like it was the source of all their good fortune. And Lily. Lily wrapped her arms around Silas's neck and whispered in his ear, "I knew we'd win, because you promised." Silas held her tight, held all of them tight, his family, his purpose, his second chance, and no one was ever going to take that away. The ride home felt different, lighter somehow, like the weight of the whole territory had been lifted off the wagon and left behind in Helena. Tommy couldn't stop talking. He told everyone they passed on the road about how they'd won, how Sam had stood up to the board, how the mean man with the fancy suit had lost. "We're a real family now," he kept saying. "Official and everything." Grace sat quietly, but she was smiling, really smiling. Not the careful, measured expression she usually wore. Something genuine. Something free. Eli had fallen asleep against Sam's shoulder, still clutching Dusty. The nightmares had been getting better. Fewer screams, fewer tears, more peaceful sleep. And Lily sat in Silas's lap on the driver's bench, holding the reins like she was steering them home herself. "I'm driving," she announced to no one in particular. "I'm taking us home." Silas let her believe it. Let her believe she was in control of something, even if his hands were really doing the work. "You're doing great, darlin'." "I know." Sam moved up to sit beside them, leaving Eli sleeping in the back with Grace and Tommy. "So what happens now?" "Now we go home. We get back to living. That's it. It's really over." Silas was quiet for a moment. "Sterling lost. The board ruled in our favor. The placement is permanent." He glanced at Sam. "But if you're asking whether life is going to be easy from here on out, no. We've still got a ranch to run, mouths to feed, winters to survive. That doesn't change." "I know that. I meant—" Sam struggled for words. "I meant, do we still have to be afraid? Do we still have to wonder if someone's going to take us away?" Silas thought about that. About the fear these children had carried since their parents died. The constant uncertainty. The knowledge that safety was temporary, that promises were lies, that home was just another word for the place you'd eventually leave. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he said finally. "You're home, for good, and nobody is going to change that." Sam nodded slowly, then so quietly, Silas almost missed it. "Okay, I think I can believe that now." They reached the ranch on the second evening. The cabin looked different somehow. Smaller, maybe, or maybe just more like home. Silas pulled the wagon up to the porch, set the brake, and helped everyone down. Tommy and Eli ran inside, immediately racing to see who could start the fire first. Grace followed more slowly, already planning dinner in her head. Sam lingered by the wagon. Need help with the horses? Always. They worked together in comfortable silence, unhitching Rosie, brushing her down, making sure she had food and water. The routine was familiar now. Practiced. Something they'd done together 100 times in the weeks since Silas had bought 5 children at auction and changed all their lives. Silas? Yeah. Back in Helena, when I was talking to the board. Sam paused, his hand still on the curry brush. Were you scared that it wouldn't work? Terrified? You didn't look scared. I've had practice hiding it. Silas took the brush from him, started working on Rosie's other side. But yeah, I was scared out of my mind. Everything we'd built, everything we'd survived, it all came down to that one moment. And I couldn't do anything except sit there and watch you fight our battle. I had to do something. You did more than something. You won. Silas looked at him over Rosie's back. I've never been prouder of anyone in my life. You know that. Sam's face flushed. I just told the truth. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, especially when the people with power don't want to hear it. Silas finished brushing, hung the curry comb on its hook. You stood up. You fought back. You didn't let them see you as a victim or a number or a problem to be solved. You made them see you as a person, as a family. I was just, don't. Silas came around the horse, put his hands on Sam's shoulders. Don't make it smaller than it was. What you did in that courtroom took more courage than most grown men have in their whole lives. You should be proud. Sam's eyes were wet again. He seemed to be crying a lot lately. Or maybe he was just finally feeling safe enough to show it. I was so scared, he whispered. The whole time I was talking, I kept thinking, what if it doesn't work? What if they take us anyway? What if this is the last time I see my family all together? But you did it anyway. Yeah. That's what courage is, son. Not being fearless, being scared to death and doing the right thing anyway. Sam wiped his eyes, straightened his shoulders. Can we go inside now? I'm hungry. Me too. Silas ruffled his hair. Come on, let's see what Grace is making. They walked to the cabin together, father and son. Not by blood, not by law, by choice. And that was stronger than either. The weeks that followed were the most peaceful Silas had known in years. The fear that had hung over them since the auction slowly began to lift. The children stopped flinching at every knock on the door, stopped watching the road for riders who might come to take them away, started believing, really believing that this was home. Tommy grew 3 inches, ate everything that wasn't nailed down, started helping with the horses like he'd been born to it. Grace's cooking improved until Silas had to admit it was better than his mother's had been. She started a garden plan for spring, mapping out where they'd plant vegetables, calculating yields, thinking ahead, in ways that made Silas realize she'd been preparing for this kind of life all along. Eli talked more every day. Whole sentences now. Sometimes whole conversations. He followed Sam everywhere, learning everything the older boy could teach him. And at night, the nightmares came less and less. Lily remained Lily. Curious, fearless, exhausting. She claimed every animal on the ranch as her personal friend, named them all, and talked to them constantly. The horses loved her. Even ornery old Scout would nuzzle her pocket for the sugar cubes she always seemed to have. And Sam was changing too. Slower to anger, quicker to smile, starting to act like the boy he should have been instead of the man he'd been forced to become. One evening, about a month after the hearing, Silas found him sitting on the porch watching the sun go down. Room for one more? Sam scooted over. Silas settled beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke, just watched the colors change across the sky. I've been thinking, Sam finally said. About what? About what I want to be, when I grow up. Silas raised an eyebrow. That's a big question. I know. Sam pulled his knees up, wrapped his arms around them. When Pa was alive, I figured I'd just take over the homestead, work the land like he did, raise a family like he did. Never thought much beyond that. And now I think maybe I want to do something different. Sam glanced at him. Maybe something like what you did, finding kids who need help, giving them homes, making sure families stay together. Silas was quiet. That's not an easy life. Neither is this one. But it's worth it, right? Yeah, it is. Sam nodded. Then that's what I want. To make sure what almost happened to us doesn't happen to other kids. To be someone who fights for families instead of tearing them apart. Silas looked at the boy beside him. This boy who'd been sold at auction, who'd nearly lost everything, who'd stood in front of a territorial board and demanded to be seen as human. You'd be good at it. You think so? I know so. Silas put a hand on his shoulder. But you've got time. You don't have to decide anything right now. You've got years of growing up left to do. I know. Sam paused. I just wanted you to know what I'm thinking about, where I might be headed. I'm glad you told me. They sat together until the sun finished setting, until the first stars appeared, until Grace called them in for dinner. Then they went inside, together, where they belonged. Spring came slowly to Montana. The snow melted, the ground thawed, the world turned from white to brown to the first fragile green of new growth. Silas had never been so busy in his life. There was planting to do, fencing to repair, horses to train for the cavalry buyers who would come through in summer. 1,000 tasks that had waited through winter, all demanding attention at once. But he wasn't doing it alone anymore. Sam worked beside him from dawn to dusk, stronger now, more skilled. Tommy helped where he could, fetching tools, carrying supplies, asking endless questions about everything. Even Eli pitched in his small hands, surprisingly good at tasks that required patience and precision. The girls ran the house. Grace managed the cooking, the cleaning, the impossible logistics of keeping 6 people fed and clothed on a shoestring budget. Lily helped by helping, which mostly meant getting in the way and making everything take twice as long, but nobody had the heart to stop her. They were a family, a real functioning, messy, complicated family, and Silas had never been happier. One afternoon in late April, a rider appeared on the road to the ranch. Silas was mending fence with Sam when they saw him coming. A man on a dark horse moving at an easy pace. Sam went rigid. Easy, Silas said. Probably just a traveler. What if it's not? What if Sterling sent someone? Then we deal with it. Silas set down his tools. Come on, let's see who it is. They walked toward the road, meeting the rider at the edge of the property. The man was older, weathered face, kind eyes, something familiar about him that Silas couldn't quite place. Help you. The rider dismounted, removed his hat. Mr. Cooper? Silas Cooper. That's me? My name is Thomas Dawson. The man's voice caught. I was these children's uncle. Silas felt like he'd been punched. Sam had gone white. Uncle Thomas. His voice was barely a whisper. You left us. You took us to the orphanage, and you left us. The old man flinched. I know what I did, and I know nothing I say can make it right. His eyes were wet. I came to explain, and to apologize, if you'll let me. Sam's hands curled into fists. You said you'd come back. You said you'd get settled and come back for us. We waited. We waited for months. And you never came. I couldn't. Thomas's voice broke. I was sick. Same fever that took your parents. Spent 3 months in a hospital in Denver, barely alive. By the time I recovered, I couldn't find you. They said you'd been placed, that the records were sealed, that I'd have to go through official channels. So you gave up. No. Thomas stepped forward. I spent 6 months trying to find you, wrote letters, filed petitions, traveled to every orphanage and placement office in 3 territories. They kept telling me you'd been split up, that I'd have to find each of you separately, that it was impossible. He looked at Sam, at Silas. Then I saw the newspaper article about the hearing in Helena, About a man who'd bought all 5 of you at auction and fought to keep you together. His voice dropped. And I came as fast as I could. Silence stretched across the yard. Silas watched Sam. Watched the boy struggle with something that was too big for his 12 years to process. Why should we believe you? Sam's voice shook. Why should we believe anything you say? You shouldn't. Thomas's shoulders sagged. I failed you. I failed my brother's children when they needed me most. Nothing I say changes that. I just wanted you to know it wasn't because I didn't care. I was dying in a hospital bed while you were being sold at auction, and that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Sam was crying now, angry tears, hurt tears. You were supposed to take care of us. That's what family does. I know. We needed you. I know. And you weren't there. I know. Thomas's voice was barely audible. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Silas moved then, stepped forward, put himself between the old man and the boy. Sam, go get your sisters and brothers. Bring them out here. But, do it. Sam hesitated, then nodded and ran toward the cabin. Silas turned to Thomas. You say you're their uncle. I am. You have proof. Thomas reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a stack of documents, letters, photographs. Everything I could find, birth records, family photographs, letters from my brother before he died. He handed them to Silas. I'm not here to take them away. I know they have a home now, a real home. I just wanted them to know the truth, and I wanted to see them, just once, to see that they're okay. Silas looked through the documents, recognized the faces in the photographs, saw the resemblance that he should have noticed in the man's weathered features. If you're lying, I'm not. If you do anything to hurt these children, I won't. Thomas met his eyes. I swear on my brother's grave, I won't. The cabin door opened. 5 children came out clustered around Sam, Grace holding Lily's hand, Tommy with his arm around Eli. They stopped at the edge of the porch, staring at the old man who was supposed to have saved them a year ago. Thomas took a step toward them, then stopped. Grace, Tommy, Eli, Lily. His voice trembled. You've all grown so much. You look just like your mother. Grace's face was hard. You left us. I know. We thought you didn't want us. I did. I wanted you more than anything, but I couldn't. He stopped, started again. I was sick, and then I was lost, and by the time I found my way back, someone else had saved you. He looked at Silas. Someone better than me. Lily tugged on Grace's hand. Who's that man? He's... Grace struggled. He's our uncle, Mama's brother. Like Sam is my brother. Sort of. Lily considered this, then pulled free of Grace's grip and walked across the yard. Everyone held their breath. She stopped in front of Thomas, looked up at him with those huge dark eyes. Are you nice? Thomas knelt down to her level. I try to be. Silas is nice. He keeps his promises. I know. I've heard. Do you keep your promises? Thomas's eyes filled with tears. I didn't used to, but I'm learning. Lily thought about this. Then she reached out and took his hand. Okay, you can visit, but you can't stay forever, because we already have a family. Thomas made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. I know you do, and it's a good one. Silas watched the old man meet each of his children, watched Grace's anger slowly soften into something more complicated, watched Tommy's questions and Eli's shy smile and Sam's guarded acceptance. He watched a broken family begin to heal in a way he hadn't expected. And he realized something. This wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of something new, something bigger, something that included a past they couldn't change and a future they were building together. Thomas stayed for dinner, sat at their table, ate Grace's cooking, listened to Tommy's chatter and Eli's whispered comments and Lily's endless questions. He told them about their parents, Stories from before. Happy memories that the children had been too young to hold on to or too hurt to remember. Your father used to sing, Thomas said. Couldn't carry a tune to save his life, but he sang anyway. Every morning. Drove your mother crazy. Grace smiled. I remember. He'd sing while he fed the chickens. That's right. Said it made the eggs better. Did it? No. But he believed it did. And sometimes that's enough. The children laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in over a year, they talked about their parents without the grief swallowing everything else. Silas watched from his seat at the head of the table. His family, his home. After dinner, Thomas walked out to the porch with Silas. Thank you, the old man said quietly, for letting me stay, for letting me see them. They're your family too. No, they're yours now. You earned that. Thomas looked out at the darkening sky. I failed them. You didn't. That makes you their father in every way that matters. Silas was quiet for a moment. You could stay, visit more, be part of their lives. You'd allow that. It's not my decision alone. But yeah, I think they'd like having you around, knowing their past, hearing about their parents. Thomas turned to him. You're a good man, Silas Cooper. I'm a stubborn man. Good is debatable. Thomas laughed. The first real laugh Silas had heard from him. Same thing sometimes. They shook hands, an understanding passing between them. Two men who loved the same children, who would protect them, who would make sure they never felt abandoned again. I'll come back, Thomas said. In a month or two, if that's all right. It's all right. And I'll write, so they know I'm thinking about them. They'd like that. Thomas mounted his horse. Take care of them. Always. The old man rode away into the gathering dark. Silas stood on the porch until he couldn't see him anymore. Then he went back inside. To his family. To his home. To the life he'd built from nothing but stubbornness and love. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Silas sat by the stove alone, thinking about everything that had happened. The auction, the hearing, the sickness and the storms and the fear, and now this. An uncle returned, a past reconnected, a family growing in ways he hadn't expected. The door to the boys' room creaked open. Sam appeared. Can't sleep. Thinking. About Uncle Thomas. About everything. Sam crossed the room, sat on the floor beside Silas's chair. It's strange. I spent so long hating him, thinking he abandoned us. And now? Now it's complicated. Yeah. Sam leaned back against the chair. But good complicated, I think. That's life, son. Nothing simple. People make mistakes. People get lost. But sometimes they find their way back. Like you did. Silas looked at him. What do you mean? You said you were lost, after your wife and son died, that you didn't know why you were still alive. Sam met his eyes. But then you found us, and now you're not lost anymore. Silas's throat tightened. No, I'm not lost anymore. Neither are we. They sat together in the quiet cabin, the fire crackling, the wind sighing outside, 5 children sleeping peacefully in the rooms beyond. Silas. Yeah. This is real, isn't it? This family, this home, it's not going to disappear. It's real as anything gets. Sam nodded slowly. Good. Because I don't think I could survive losing another one. Silas reached down, ruffled the boy's hair. You're not losing anyone. Not ever again. Promise. Promise. Sam smiled. That rare, genuine smile that Silas had learned to treasure. Okay. I believe you. Then he stood, stretched, and headed back to bed. Good night, Silas. Good night, son. The door closed. Silas sat alone with the fire and the silence. Thinking about promises, about family, about the long road that had led him here, and knowing really knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. Because that's what families did. That's what love meant. And that was worth everything. Summer came to Montana like a promise finally kept. The ranch transformed. Fields that had been buried under snow now rippled with young wheat. The garden Grace had planned burst into life: tomatoes, beans, squash, climbing toward the sun. The horses grew sleek and strong, ready for the cavalry buyers who would come in August. And the children bloomed. Tommy shot up another 2 inches, his voice starting to crack and deepen in ways that embarrassed him terribly. He'd taken to working with the horses like he'd been born in a saddle, and Silas had already started teaching him to break colts. Grace turned 12 in June. They celebrated with a cake she'd made herself and presents wrapped in newspaper. She cried when Silas gave her a set of real cooking pots, not hand-me-downs, not borrowed, but brand new from the general store in Silver Creek. "You didn't have to," she kept saying. "You didn't have to." "Yeah, I did. Every cook needs her own tools." Eli had become Silas's shadow. The boy who'd barely spoken 6 months ago now chattered constantly, asking questions about everything, storing away knowledge like a squirrel, storing nuts for winter. He'd started drawing 2 pictures of the ranch, the horses, his family. Crude, but recognizable. Full of the details only someone paying close attention would notice. Lily remained Lily. Wild and fearless, and absolutely certain that the world revolved around her. She'd claimed the barn cat as her personal property, named it Princess Dusty II, and carried it everywhere, despite the animal's obvious displeasure. And Sam was becoming a man. Not all at once. Not in any single moment. But slowly, steadily, the boy Silas had met at the auction was transforming into someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who smiled more than he frowned. Someone who was starting to believe that good things could last. One evening in late July, Silas found him sitting on the hill behind the cabin. The hill where 2 wooden crosses stood. "Didn't know you came up here," Silas said, settling beside him. "Sometimes, when I need to think." "About what?" Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he gestured at the crosses. "Your wife, your son, do you still miss them?" Silas looked at the graves he'd dug with his own hands, the names he'd carved through tears and grief. "Every day." "Does it get easier?" "Not easier. Different. The missing doesn't go away. It just makes room for other things." Sam nodded slowly. "I still miss my parents, but it doesn't hurt as much anymore. Is that wrong? Does that mean I'm forgetting them?" "No." Silas put a hand on his shoulder. "It means you're healing. That's not forgetting. That's surviving. Sometimes I feel guilty, being happy here, like I'm betraying them somehow." "You think your parents would want you to be miserable?" "No." "You think they'd want you to spend your whole life grieving instead of living?" "No." "Then don't feel guilty for being happy. That's not betrayal. That's honoring them, living the life they wanted for you." Sam wiped his eyes. "I wish they could see us, see what we've become, see that we're okay." Silas looked at the sky, at the clouds drifting across the endless blue. "Maybe they can. Maybe they're watching right now." "You believe that?" "I don't know what I believe, but I know this. If there's any justice in the universe, your parents know you're safe. Know you're together. Know you're loved." Sam leaned against him, a boy seeking comfort from the man who'd become his father. "Thank you," he whispered. "For everything. For choosing us. For fighting for us. For not giving up. Thank you for letting me." They sat together until the sun touched the horizon. Then they walked back down the hill, together, like they did everything now. The cavalry buyers came in August. Silas had been preparing for months. The horses were trained, groomed, ready to show. This sale would determine whether they survived another winter or slid back into the desperate poverty that had defined the ranch before the children came. Sam helped him bring the horses to the paddock. Tommy watched from the fence, too young to participate, but too invested to stay inside. Grace kept the younger ones occupied in the cabin, though Silas knew she was watching through the window. The buyer was a stern-faced captain named Morrison, military bearing, sharp eyes. The kind of man who could spot a weak horse or a desperate seller from 50 paces. "These your animals?" "Yes, sir. Raised and trained them myself." Morrison walked the line, checked teeth hooves confirmation, ran his hands along flanks and legs, made notes in a small leather book. "The bay is sound. The sorrel too. But this gray, thunder." Silas moved to the horse's side. "Best cow horse I've ever trained. Responsive, brave, smart. He'll serve you well. He's got a scar on his foreleg. Wire cut from 2 years ago. Healed clean. Doesn't affect his movement." Morrison studied him. Studied the horse. Studied Sam, who was standing rigid with anxiety. "Your boy, my son. Yes." The word came out without thought, without hesitation. "My son." Sam's eyes widened, but he didn't contradict it. Morrison nodded slowly. "He looks like a hard worker." "He is. Best I've ever had." "Taught him yourself?" "We taught each other." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "I lost my boy at Chickamauga. Would have been about his age now." He looked at Sam with something that might have been grief, or might have been recognition. "You hold on to him. Don't let him go." "I don't intend to." Morrison made his decision. "I'll take the bay, the sorrel, and the gray. $60 each. 180 total." Silas's heart nearly stopped. $180. More than he'd made in 3 years combined. Enough to fix the roof, buy supplies for winter, maybe even add that extra room he'd been planning. Done. They shook hands. Morrison counted out the money, real bills, not promises or IOUs, and pressed them into Silas's palm. "You've got good stock, Cooper, and a good family. I'll be back next year. I'll have more horses ready. I'm counting on it." The captain rode away with 3 horses trailing behind him. Silas stood in the paddock, holding more money than he'd seen in years. Sam appeared at his elbow. "Did we do it? Did we really do it?" "We did it. That's enough for winter, for everything." "Enough and then some." Silas looked at the boy. "We're going to be okay, son. Really okay. For the first time since—" He couldn't finish. Sam finished for him. For the first time ever. For any of us. They walked back to the cabin together. Inside, the others were waiting. Grace had seen the money change hands. Tommy was bouncing with impatience. Eli was clutching dusty eyes bright with hope. Lily was trying to climb onto the table to see better. "Well," Grace's voice was tense. "What happened?" Silas held up the money. For a moment nobody spoke. Then Tommy let out a whoop that probably scared every bird within a mile. "We're rich. We're actually rich." "We're not rich." Silas laughed. "But we're not poor anymore either." Grace burst into tears. "We can fix the roof. We can buy real winter coats. We can do all of it." Silas pulled her into a hug. "We can finally stop surviving and start living." Lily tugged on his pants leg. "Does this mean we can get a real Christmas tree? A big one?" Silas looked down at her. "Yeah, darling. This year we're getting the biggest Christmas tree in Montana." She squealed with delight. And Silas stood there surrounded by his family, holding enough money to see them through winter, and felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Security. Real, solid, unshakable security. For the first time in years, he didn't have to wonder how they'd survive. They just would. Together. Fall came early that year. The leaves turned gold and red, then fell to blanket the ground. The nights grew cold, the days grew short, and the family drew closer together, preparing for the winter ahead. But this winter was different. The roof no longer leaked. The walls had been properly chinked against drafts. The larder was full, not just adequate, but genuinely full. There were new coats for everyone. New boots that actually fit new blankets that weren't held together by patches and prayers. "It feels strange," Grace admitted one evening. "Having enough. Strange how, like I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for someone to take it away." Silas understood that feeling. The fear that good things couldn't last. The suspicion that happiness was just a setup for heartbreak. "Nothing's going to take it away." "You can't know that." "No, but I can promise to fight like hell if anything tries." Grace smiled. That rare, full smile that transformed her face. "That's enough. That's always been enough." Uncle Thomas came for a visit in late October. He'd kept his promised letters every few weeks, short visits when he could manage them. The children had warmed to him slowly, cautiously, like animals learning to trust a new handler. This visit he brought gifts. Small things. A ribbon for Grace. A pocket knife for Sam. Carved toys for the younger ones. "You didn't have to," Grace said unconsciously, echoing what she'd said to Silas about the cooking pots. "I know, but I wanted to." Thomas sat at the table looking older than his years. "I missed so much. I can't make up for that. But I can be here now." "That's all we ever wanted," Sam said quietly. "For people to be here when they said they would." Thomas nodded. "I'm here, for as long as you'll have me." "Then you're here for good." Eli's voice surprised everyone. The boy who'd been silent for so long now spoke up without hesitation. "Because we don't send family away." Thomas's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Eli. That means more than you know." The old man stayed for a week. He helped with chores, told stories about the children's parents, played games with Tommy and Eli, let Lily braid his sparse gray hair into ridiculous configurations. And when he left, he hugged each child goodbye. "I'll be back for Christmas," he promised. "Try to stop me." "We won't," Lily said seriously. "Because you're family now, and family always comes back." Thomas looked at Silas over her head. "You've done something remarkable here." "We all have." "No, this is you. The way they trust, the way they love, the way they believe in tomorrow. That's all you." Silas shook his head. "That's all them. I just gave them a place to do it." Thomas smiled. "Same thing in the end." He rode away into the October morning, and the family he left behind went back to their life. Together, like always. The first snow came on November 15th. 1 year to the day since Silas had stood in a stockyard and watched 5 children being sold at auction. 1 year since he'd said, "all of them," and changed his life forever. The children noticed the date. Of course they did. They noticed everything now, dates and seasons, and the way memory attached itself to the calendar. 1 year, Sam said at breakfast. "I can't believe it's been a year." "Feels longer," Tommy said around a mouthful of biscuit. "Feels shorter," Grace countered. "Like we just got here yesterday." "Both," Eli offered. "Feels like both." Lily looked confused. "What are we talking about?" "The day Silas found us," Grace explained. "The day he brought us home." "Oh." Lily thought about this. "That was a good day." "Yeah." Sam looked at Silas. "Yeah, it was." Silas didn't know what to say, didn't know how to mark the occasion, this anniversary of everything changing. But Lily solved the problem for him. "We should have a party." "A party? For our birthday, the day we became a family." She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Families have birthdays. We should have one too." Silas looked at the others, at Grace's hesitant smile, at Sam's shrug, at Tommy's enthusiastic nodding, at Eli clutching Dusty and waiting to see what everyone else decided. "A party," Silas said slowly, "for our family birthday. With cake," Lily added, "and presents. And we all say nice things about each other." "That's a lot of nice things. We're a nice family," Silas laughed. For the first time in longer than he could remember, he laughed until his sides hurt. "Okay, a party. For our family birthday." They spent the day preparing. Grace made a cake chocolate their collective favorite. Tommy and Eli decorated the cabin with whatever they could find, ribbons, dried flowers, drawings Eli had made. Sam helped Silas move furniture to make room for celebrating, and Lily supervised everything, convinced that the whole operation would collapse without her leadership. When evening came, they gathered around the table. 6 people, 1 cake, 1 year of being a family. "Someone should say something," Grace said. "Something important about what this day means." Everyone looked at Silas. He cleared his throat. "1 year ago, I went to Silver Creek to buy a horse. I had $75 in my pocket and no plan for anything except surviving another winter alone." He paused. "Then I saw 5 children on an auction platform, holding hands, trying not to be separated, and something in me broke open." His voice roughened. "I didn't know any of you. Didn't know your names or your stories or what you'd been through. All I knew was that watching you be torn apart was wrong, and I couldn't live with myself if I let it happen." He looked at each of them. "I spent everything I had that day, every cent, every bit of security I'd built. I went home with empty pockets and 5 children I didn't know how to care for." He smiled. "Best decision I ever made." Tommy started crying. Grace reached for his hand. Eli pressed closer to Sam. Lily climbed into Silas's lap like she belonged there. Because she did. They all did. "This year has been hard," Silas continued. "We've faced storms and sickness and people who wanted to tear us apart. We've been scared and hungry and uncertain about tomorrow. We've made mistakes and learned from them and made new ones." He paused. "But we did it together. Every challenge, every triumph, every ordinary day in between. We faced it as a family, and that's worth more than all the money or security or comfort in the world." He raised his glass water, not whiskey, because there were children present. "To our family, 1-year-old today. May we have 100 more." 100 more, they echoed. And then Lily blew out the candles, and then they ate cake. And then they sat by the fire telling stories about the year behind them, making plans for the years ahead. A family, imperfect and messy, and held together by choice instead of blood. But real, so real. Later that night, after the younger ones had gone to bed, Sam found Silas on the porch. "Thank you." "For what?" "For all of it." Sam stood beside him, nearly as tall now, nearly grown. "For seeing us that day, for choosing us, for fighting for us when everyone else gave up. I told you it was the best decision I ever made. I know, but I wanted you to know. It was ours too." Sam's voice was steady. "The best thing that ever happened to us. You, this place, this family. Even after losing our parents, even after everything we went through, we ended up here. With you. And that means something." Silas's throat tightened. "What does it mean?" "It means that maybe—" Sam paused. "Maybe the worst things that happen to us can lead to the best things. Maybe losing everything is sometimes how we find what we're supposed to have." That's pretty wise for a 13-year-old. "I learned from you." They stood together in the cold November night, watching the stars, watching the snow begin to fall, watching the world turn white and clean and new. Silas. "Yeah. I love you. I know I've never said it, but I do. You're my father, not because you have to be, because you chose to be, and that means more than blood ever could." Silas couldn't speak for a moment. When he finally found his voice, it was rough with emotion. "I love you too, son. All of you. More than I ever thought I could love anything again." Sam leaned against him. A boy and his father. Watching the snowfall, watching their breath fog in the cold air, watching the world they'd built together hold firm against the night. "We should go inside," Sam finally said. "It's cold." "Yeah, we should." But neither of them moved. Not yet. Not until the snow had covered everything in white. Not until the silence felt complete. Then they went inside, together. To the family waiting by the fire. to the home they'd earned and defended and loved, to the life that had grown from $75 and a single act of stubborn, desperate hope. And as the door closed behind them, as the warmth wrapped around them, as Lily's sleepy voice called out, asking if there was more cake, Silas Cooper knew one thing with absolute certainty. Some promises were worth everything it cost to keep them, and some families were worth even more. He looked at his children, Sam and Grace and Tommy and Eli and Lily, and felt his heart expand beyond anything he'd thought possible. This was his life now. This was his purpose. This was his home. And nothing would ever take it away. Because family wasn't just blood. Family wasn't just law. Family was a choice made every single day, in every single moment, through every single struggle and triumph and ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Family was saying, "All of you come with me," and meaning it. Family was keeping that promise, no matter what it cost. And Silas Cooper had kept his promise. From that first moment in the stockyard to this quiet night by the fire, he had never wavered, never given up, never let go, and he never would. Because that's what family meant. That's what love meant. That's what forever meant. Not the absence of pain or struggle or uncertainty, but the presence of people who chose each other again and again through all of it. Silas looked at his children one more time. Then he smiled, and they smiled back. And that was everything. That was enough. That was home.